And joining me now is Israel's new ambassador to Canada, Ronen Hoffman. Welcome to the CJN Daily.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so excited. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks a lot.
It's a pleasure to have you in Canada, although you came at a really unfortunate time in COVID history. We're locking down just as you started to reach out and be here. It must be very disappointing.
Well, I would have preferred to be able to meet people face to face and to be moving from, one place to another. But I have to say that I don't think it's going to make a real change, at least not in the mandate and in the goals that I have here, because we're doing our work, and I'm very happy to meet people. Like our conversation now is an online conversation, but it's still nice, and it's still we work with it's connection between people, and as long as we can communicate, even if we need to use some technological platform that have been developed for it, we are okay.
Now, you were able, before the Omicron arrived, to have an in-person credential ceremony. So maybe we can take a step back and describe what it was like when you presented your credentials. What do you remember the most about it?
Well, I have to say that it was a very moving and a wonderful ceremony. I came there with my family, which is here with me, my partner and my son, and my team from the embassy. And it was a great ceremony, great way to start, I would say, posting a position here as an ambassador. Together with me, there were 3 other ambassadors that presented, the ambassador of the US, Spain, and Sri Lanka. And so it was also an opportunity for us to get a little bond together and speak to each other, and of course, meeting the Governor General and her spouse and the people there was very impressive and very moving. And I'm very happy that we had an opportunity to really do it, not through Zoom or through the internet, but really do it there, real, face to face.
Did you wear or bring or do anything that meant something meaningful to you?
Can you see the little pin on my jacket? So I added to it an orange. It was as a solidarity with the Indigenous here in Canada. We all of our group actually had it around our pins. It was very nice.
Why did you decide to put that pin and the Indigenous pin for that particular ceremony? Because I haven't heard of other ambassadors doing that. So I want to unpack that a little more.
I feel that part of what I'm going to do here, I would like to educate myself more on the First Nations communities here. I believe and I feel that there's common ground for us to stand on, all of us as the Jewish people, who for us, the state of Israel is in essence a return of the Jewish people to our indigenous homeland, and traditions and culture. And I would like to learn more about the First Nation communities, tradition, languages, culture here. So I feel that as part of what I would like to do here is really get closer to the First Nations communities and learn more about them and about the history and the culture. My goal is to build bridges of dialogue, cooperation, collaboration with communities, and we really wanted to show that we care and that it's important for us, the inter-community relationships, and getting to learn and to know more about communities here. This is it is an important part of what I would like to do here as an ambassador.
I do want to ask, before we go in specifics about your mandate letter, you're coming to Canada May, June, July, August, September, October, 6 months after the war between Hamas and Israel, where Canada, Jewish community, Canadian Jewish community experienced an unprecedented, perhaps historic since World War II level of anti-Semitism. I'm sure you're aware of how the community had to adapt and cope. What did you, first of all, were you surprised when you heard about what the Canadian Jewish community was feeling? And what is your mandate to deal with this here in Canada?
So I can't say that I was surprised, because I'm part of my profession before I became an ambassador has been I've been a lecturer, and as a lecturer I met with many delegations from the Jewish communities of North America, including Canada, who came to Israel. And I heard a lot before the conflict in May about challenges and opportunities of the Jewish communities here vis-a-vis other communities and vis-a-vis other minorities and governments. And so I cannot say that I was surprised. I'm aware of the anti-Semitism and the waves of anti-Semitism. And I agree with you that that one around the conflict in May has been a tremendous one. I would say has been a very significant when you compare it to previous waves. Absolutely. But the mere fact that the Jewish communities experience hate crimes and anti-Semitism is, I think, it's not new. And I think that as Israeli diplomats and my role as an Israeli ambassador to Canada is to help and to coordinate and to cooperate and to join forces in the combat of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and anti-Israel, and they're all connected to each other. You know, we sometimes some of the people would say, oh, you know, some of these activists just want to show some criticism towards the government of Israel. It's not that. It's much deeper than that, and there's a hidden agenda. And you know what? Not necessarily hidden. You know, it used to be hidden maybe. Now it's not hidden anymore. They're actually against the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state. This is not an anti-Israel. This is not a criticism. This is an anti-Semitism. And I think that the Jewish communities here in Canada are not alone in this you know, facing this threat and challenge. We, the Israelis, are you know, brothers and sisters and families. We all face the same kind of challenge in this respect. So, of course, part of my mandate is to work hand in hand with the head of the leaders of the Jewish communities here and try to find ways to combat it together. And of course, not only here, but also to cooperate with other Jewish communities in North America, not only in North America. I think it's a challenge that the entire Jewish world and Israel, of course, as part of it, should face together and should cooperate on combating it together.
It's a big part of your mandate. I read some of it. What are, but it wasn't the number one list that we saw when the news release came out. Your number one priority for your mandate is
to strengthen the relationship between Israel and Canada, which are very close relations, very close friendship. And we shared, and we still, you know, we have shared and we still share common values and common interests. And like Canada, Israel is committed to human rights, to justice, to rule of law. We are liberal democracies, and as liberal democracies committed and shared same values, we also have shared interests. For example, to combat terrorism, global terrorism, to help to create more stability in our areas, in our regions, and to work together vis-a-vis opportunities and challenges on the other hand. So that is, I would say, my number one goal here, to continue and to strengthen those bilateral relations and close friendship that Israel has with Canada.
What concerns does the Israeli government have about Canada's decision in the previous hostilities to give money, millions, $25 million to agencies such as UNRWA and others that they have had a very problematic a history when it comes to anti-Zionist and anti-Israel and Jew hatred materials, for example? How does Canada feel? How does Israel feel about that?
Well, the concerns that we have is not necessarily specific vis-a-vis Canada. We face some organizations, international and Palestinian organizations that call themselves organizations that care for human rights, and they kind of hide behind those high language and terms that we are all committed to. But actually, what they're doing and their actions has nothing to do with human rights. They are terror organizations. They hide behind some terms and language. And so our concern is that our friends around the world, including Canada, would be with us, looking at those organizations, expose their lies, and getting to see exactly what they're doing. A terror organization is a terror organization. It doesn't really matter what kind of language they use. What matters is what they're doing, what their actions are. And so the concern is, and the challenge is, to be able to investigate and to expose what they're doing, and to convince our friends around the world that they are not an innocent organizations dealing with human rights, but rather terror organizations who sponsor terrorism. And this is a concern and a mission and a real objective as part of our diplomatic work.
You were saying that you want to help with startups and with the Israeli know-how to solve problems that Canada can learn from. Is there any particular, we just finished re-upping the Canada-Israel Free Trade Agreement, was re-signed under Trudeau's last government, under the last government of Trudeau. So is there anything more to do, more agreements to be signed, or is that, because that's supposed to last a few more years, no?
Yes, but of course, there's a lot to do. Look, Israel and Canada are closely working on finalizing a research and development agreement, joint research and development agreement, to mutually invest in know-how, in joint research projects, in innovation, on several fields, such as food tech, health tech, again, environment, energy, climate, security. So I think that the focus should be on investing together in the know-how. And then, of course, letting startups and VCs and the industrial ecosystem to get to know each other and to develop ties and relations. But the know-how, the research, the cutting-edge research in technologies, innovation is very important. And yes, so we're working on it, and I'm optimistic here. I think that we would really enlarge our relationship and find and create more joint projects on innovation. And this is, again, one of the high priorities on my agenda.
Sorry, I was muted. Would you say that there's like a date? Like, are they expecting to sign it within 2022, 2023? When is that happening?
There's no specific date, but as an ambassador, I'm going to push, and I'm going to try to do it as soon as possible. And it's just one specific agreement, and I have some ideas for other agreements as well to start MOUs. And look, every agreement or project starts with a dialogue, right? So my idea is to create more dialogues between and I'm talking about G2G, as we say, government to government, meaning some of the ministries in Israel that are relevant to innovation would hopefully, and this is something that I'm going to initiate, would speak in a structured dialogue process to some of the ministries here in Canada. For example, the ministries of energy and the ministries of environment, agriculture, and others. And so we'll set a set of several bilateral dialogues that eventually, I hope, would produce new agreements. And those agreements would be long-term agreements for mutual investment in know-how, in and in projects, and that is one of the ways to strengthen relationship between countries.
You mentioned that, and it leads me to think about a lot of the research work is done at the university level, though, once the government has these relationships. And that brings us to the problem of a lot of Canadian universities have boycott, divestment, and sanction policies, or try to have them, or the unions have them. How can the Israeli ambassador and the Israeli embassy negotiate this minefield, which is popping up all over the place in Canada, for your MOUs and this cooperation?
Well, I think that there's at least two ways to go about it. One is to differentiate between the political talks, around campuses, which is important, but to differentiate between these and, going for, to debates. Expose the lies, the industry of lies of the go, and cooperate in joint research, start new projects with universities, connect universities here to university in Canada, to universities in Israel, and work together on a tikkun olam, if you will, of doing together something that the world would be able to benefit.
It's a tough one. I mean, the Israeli universities have lots of Canadian offices here. And vice versa, there are some, but it's in the news last week, there were 70,000 teachers who said we won't sign the IHRA definition, and it was a big story. So it's not smooth sailing.
It is a big story, but we have so many other scholars and researchers who we should work with. So absolutely, I agree with you. We should fight and combat against this, BDS and all these things, but at the same time cooperate with our friends and really encourage and get it bigger and bigger, the cooperation.
I was told to ask you about your son in hockey, so I'm asking you because that is like a door opener to anybody in Canada. Just mention that, and they'll open with welcome arms. So why don't you tell us, if you want, are you allowed? Will your son kill you?
Well, he will kill me anyway, but I'm going to tell you. I have three children. Eitan is my oldest, is 26 now. He's a student at Columbia University in New York. My daughter Tamara is 24, and she's also a student at Columbia University in New York. And my little son Tomer, who's 4 years old, is here with me. Eitan, my oldest, when he was in elementary school in Israel, the hockey, just started to be introduced in Israel by friends who immigrated from Russia, actually, right? And but since in Israel there were no ice arenas, at that time there was only one in Metula, right, in the north, in the
Arrow Greenberg, absolutely.
So they started with roller hockey. So my son Eitan started when he was first grade, second grade, something like that. He started with roller hockey, which was close to the real thing, but was not the real thing. And at some point, they started to build ice arenas for ice hockey. So he moved from the roller hockey to the ice hockey. By the time when he was 16 or 17, he was the captain of the of Israel's youth national team, and they were part of the hockey Europe, the league, and they competed there, and at some point they became number 2 in Europe. The Israeli who had no hockey in the I said in our tradition. So I was very proud then. And now, of course, when he's in New York, I'm here, and hopefully he would come here. We will go together to hockey games, and he will explain to me what it's all about. Because that's another thing I need to learn.
Wait, but if you were a hockey dad, you would know all this stuff, like going to the arenas with your thermos of coffee and being cold. This is a whole thing, right? You never did that?
Of course I did it. I went with him to Europe. I accompanied him. Yeah, well, I know how it feels, but I still need some explanations on the teams and the who's against, who. I still need to.
And the European rinks are different. The European rinks have a different shape than the Canadian, right? So it's different. But what number did he wear?
88.
Because any particular reason?
I don't know how it started, but it was 88, and his last name. Of course, I'm proud, so I'm saying our last name, but his last name under the number 88 Hoffman, and I was very proud.
Okay, so unfortunately, Israel's not going to be in the Olympics. They didn't make it, but they're number 34 at all. So are you a hockey fan at all, or no? Just him, a him fan, not a hockey fan.
Him for sure, but now is my opportunity. Now it is my opportunity to become a real hockey fan.
So what is the funniest thing that's happened to you since you came as an ambassador to Canada? The funniest thing that you felt or experienced?
I think that, okay, look, it's not that funny, but whenever I leave home, get into the car to go somewhere, I'm still forgetting to take my coat. I know it's not funny.
No, it is funny, but I don't even know what's the temperature today where you are. I have to check on my phone. Let me see. What's your temperature?
It's -5, something like that.
Oh, that's nothing. That's warm.
That's not okay. So so I knew why I'm not taking my coat with me.
You drive yourself, or you have a driver, of course, right?
Yeah, I have a driver, and sometimes I drive myself. But in any case, I'm still used to go out with almost with just a t-shirt. But it takes me longer than I expected to get used to.
And yeah, you'll have the canal. You'll have
to the winter.
How's your French?
Doesn't exist yet. Hopefully, I'll be able to speak some while I'm here.
Yes, it's a big thing, and I'm sure you will. Listen, it was great to meet you. Thank you so much for being on the CJN Daily.
Likewise, thank you very much for having me.